What's good, everybody? Chris here again. Chris Goes Outdoors, and we're here today gonna talk about start dates for the Appalachian Trail. In the series of Q&A videos I did with Big Mammy, I touched upon that I would have changed my start date multiple times, and I kept saying I'll get into why I would change my start date, and I never actually did get into it. So I'm gonna talk a bit about that today, my start date, and just start dates in general for the Appalachian Trail. So for my start date in 2017, I started the Appalachian Trail on April 2nd. This is one of the dates that the ATC specifically recommends that you try to avoid. Some of the most popular start dates for the Appalachian Trail are March 1st and 2nd and April 1st and 2nd. And if you look on the ATC's website now, you can actually see that they greatly suggest not starting April 1st. I started the weekend of April 1st. I flew down April 1st, started on the 2nd. But they recommend not starting then because that's when the trail typically sees, according to them, as much as 100 hikers starting at that time frame. For some people, they may enjoy that. I, for one, have to admit, I did think it was a little bit overcrowded. So they recommend starting on a date that isn't the first of the month. I think a lot of people see, oh, the best time to start the trail, it might be, March or April. I'm gonna pick the first. And I think that's just how most people think about it. Like, oh, I'll leave on the first of the month. It'll be the first thing I do, off to the races. I would recommend maybe readjust your date if you're thinking about March 1st, 2nd, April 1st, and 2nd. They are the most crowded dates according to the Appalachian Trail Conservancy. And as of this time, registry is completely voluntary. But if you use their website and you register, you can actually check to see how many people are registered on the date. You can see how crowded you may expect the trails or shelters to be at that start date. So I found the ATC tool pretty helpful. Unfortunately for me, I didn't want to push my date any further really because I had a certain allotted amount of time I was trying to finish the trail in so that I could get back to work. And on the ATC site too, they also mention some things that you can expect from starting in March to April. I would say that they are all completely accurate. Reading from my notes here, hiking in winter conditions for the first several weeks. We did get some pretty crappy wintry weather. Carrying good winter gear. Beyond Mount Rogers, I carried my winter gear until somewhere in Hot Springs, North Carolina. Ended up shipping it home. That was a terrible decision. You should carry your winter gear. Snow sometimes deep at high elevations. We did get a little snow, nothing too deep. Starting among crowds of thru hikers, section hikers, weekenders, leading to a large number of hikers that overnight. The third night, I think it was Hawk Mountain Shelter. I have never seen that many people at a campsite before in my life. So definitely keep that in mind if you're starting in March to April. It's going to be crowded out there. A lot of people choose to start in that time frame. Usually beginning of March to maybe mid to late April, it seem to be the typical starting points for a traditional northbound hike. Higher likelihood of being exposed to norovirus as a result of camping in crowded conditions in the backcountry. I can definitely attest to that being true. Just for whatever, I was sitting at a shelter with about 20 other hikers. I believe it was somewhere in Pennsylvania or Virginia, and I jokingly said, if you've got noro yet, raise your hand. Wasn't a single hiker there who didn't raise their hand, so everybody started around that time frame. It was painful. It's painful. Noro's out there. A hot, humid weather through the mid-Atlantic states. Yep, definitely true. Favorable temperatures through most of southern New England. Also true. And then periods of cold weather in New Hampshire and Maine in September and October. Our year, 2017, we did not particularly experience that. We had unseasonably nice and warm weather throughout essentially the entirety of New Hampshire and Maine. Just some things to keep in mind if you are starting around March to, April. So, and when I was discussing my own start date and what I would have changed, with all that said, I wouldn't actually change my start date. What happened on the trail, the experiences I experienced, the people I met, the whole trail, I wouldn't trade that experience for anything. However, looking back on it, I may consider starting the trail a little bit earlier. I know a lot of people now are starting it earlier to mid-February. I've seen a bunch of the 2018 people have started, and that's cool. It's awesome. And I would have considered that as well, knowing what I know now just from the crowding that I saw at my April 2nd start date. In February, you are obviously more likely to experience cold temperatures. It's still the winter. Even down south, it does still get pretty cold. You can experience snow, especially in the higher elevations. You know, the Smokies, the Balds in North Carolina, stuff like that. There would also be less people out there in early to mid-February. Less people are starting the Appalachian Trail than in March and April. So you would have a less crowded trail experience if that's what you're looking for. And I kind of was. But again, hindsight's 2020. That is the main reason why I would have maybe changed my date. Just because the amount of people that were out there when I started on April 2nd. So just tons and tons of people everywhere you went. Some people may prefer that, others may not. And that's up to you really. So if you're looking for a more kind of solitude-y experience and aren't afraid of winter weather, I would consider maybe starting early to mid-February. And if you're looking for more of a people experience, you know, you want to be around people and stuff like that, take a look at the March and April dates, but try to plan for ones that aren't that busy. And just to touch on a southbound thru hike, I'm not the expert on southbound at all. I didn't go southbound, but just from information I have read, they do recommend starting late May, maybe early June for a southbound. Starting with Katahdin, a mile-high mountain requires scrambling and hand-over-hand climbing, with almost half of the climb on exposed terrain above tree line. The hike up Katahdin's hard. The hike down Katahdin would also be pretty hard. So shortly after Katahdin, you're entering the 100-mile wilderness, which has no resupply, making your pack very heavy. Novice backpackers should carry 10 days of food. Yeah, something worth thinking about for someone that's just starting out on the trail. I could definitely see how it may be pretty challenging. Black Flies muddy trail and difficult stream crossings in Maine and June. If you have not experienced black flies, they will be the bane of your existence. They are ruthless, they will follow you for miles, they bite, and it itches like hell. It hurts pretty bad, and I guess they inject an anticoagulant into your blood, so like your blood doesn't clot immediately. Like you'll be dripping blood. I have an old video that you can watch, it was Mount Carter, I think it was. But man, they got me good out there, and I don't know if I'm allergic to them, but the welts, I had some of them that stayed on me for months. About a month of hot, humid weather in the mid-Atlantic states, but you will see fall colors in Virginia. You will be hiking through hunting season from late October onward. Cold weather during the last few months of the trail, likely with snow. A small number of other southbound hikers for companionship. So yeah, if you're going southbound, you will be starting off the hardest sections of the trail, in my opinion, Maine and New Hampshire right off the bat. But yeah, most of the southbounders I talked to seemed in great spirits. So if southbound's what you want to do, go for it. There doesn't appear to be too much overcrowding on the southbound side of things, so take a look at the start dates, see what the ATC has for registration, like the amount of people signed up for southbound, and maybe choose your date according to that, just to make sure you're not overcrowding anything. But I think for the most part, on a southbound hike, you'd be pretty good to go. So if you want the too long didn't read version, I would have possibly considered switching my hike from April 2nd, because March 1st and 2nd, April 1st and 2nd are some of the busiest start dates on the Appalachian Trail. And I would have considered moving it to maybe early February, mid-February, where there are less people, but perhaps less optimum conditions. You could face some snow and winter weather as compared to maybe say March or April. Anyways, I hope the video was helpful in some way, shape, or form. I highly recommend registering your hike with the ATC. It helps them as far as numbers and stuff goes. It will help you determine how many people are going to be out there when you start as well. That's going to do it, everyone. Hope it was helpful. If you liked the video, drop it a like. If you love the video, consider commenting and subscribing. And until next time, thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you in the next one.